Right, it's Child Protection Week and we've been focusing on various aspects around the protection of children this week. Tonight we're looking at stateless children. Now, lawyers for human rights have been struggling to highlight the plight of children abandoned and believed to be born to foreigners, or the children of foreigners who are unable to obtain documents, for instance, like a South African birth certificate. It raises questions about whether it's difficult for them to be adopted, for them to even attend school. Well, an Indaba on these undocumented children kicked off at the Parktonian Hotel in Braamfontein in Johannesburg today. Let's go to Pretoria. We're joined by Lusungu Kanyama from Lawyers for Human Rights. Lusungu, thank you for joining us. This was a Gauteng Department of Social Development and Lawyers for Human Rights event, I understand, but apparently there's been a legal case behind this to get social development to take this seriously. Just give me a bit of the background.
Yes. Hi, it's good to be here this evening. There is indeed an Indaba at the Parktonian Hotel that DSD, in collaboration with Lawyers for Human Rights and other parties, are hosting. The purpose of this Indaba is to get stakeholders to talk about issues surrounding undocumented children and to look at solutions, whether it would be solutions in policy reform, and also just hearing from actual children who are undocumented to hear what the challenges are and what the difficulties are living without documentation.
Well, what are those challenges? Can you give us some examples, and what are the children themselves saying?
Well, through Lawyers for Human Rights, we assist actually approximately 500 children. And most of those would be undocumented children born in South Africa. We've done some outreach in Aliwal North, where we've also identified 70 children who are unable to attend school due to lack of documentation. In the Western Cape, Scalabrini has also identified about 190 children who are at risk of being stateless due to lack of documentation. And these are the actual known cases.
So this means
the main challenge that these children...
This means that, Lusungu, that they don't get a birth certificate, basically. They're not deemed to be a South African resident or citizen, and that's why you're saying they're stateless, they're in limbo.
Well, yes, they have challenges in accessing documentation, so they're unable to prove any kind of nationality. And this becomes a problem. And the main challenge is...
Carry on.
The main challenge is in the legislation, the gaps in legislation that actually leave these vulnerable children undocumented and unable to access documentation.
All right, tell us about those gaps. So is this a legal issue, or are officials not giving these children documents? Is there any sort of prejudice? Presumably they are often deemed to be the children of foreigners.
You see, that's not the case. I think it's just a matter of gaps in legislation. So there's the Birth and Death Registration Act that will put in certain stringent requirements that will then leave these vulnerable children undocumented. They're not always children of foreign nationals, as is presumed. These children can be children of South African citizens as well, as we've seen through the work we do.
Are they abandoned children? What leads to a situation where documents are not issued? That's what I'm trying to understand.
Well, it's actually various reasons. Some of them, yes, are abandoned, as you mentioned. So they're abandoned before their birth is actually registered. But some of them could be orphan children, and they're South African citizens, children belonging to South African citizens, as I said, and also foreign nationals.
Lusungu, finally, what came out of the Indaba? You said some experiences were heard, but is this a problem that can be fixed? It sounds like the scale of the problem is hard to tell, but you don't want children who cannot go to school just because they don't have the right document.
I beg your pardon?
I'm saying, what came out of the Indaba? Do you see hope of this situation being addressed?
Well, you see, at this point, this was just the first day of the Indaba, so we're yet to get into like the crux of all the discussions. Today we saw children coming forward, undocumented children, and sharing their stories. And we also heard from Home Affairs, who spoke about the different documents and permits that are available for different people. And we heard from the Department of Education, who also shed a bit of light on the challenges of being undocumented, which is failure to access education.
All right, so at least the discussion has started. Thank you very much from Pretoria, Lusungu Kanyama from Lawyers for Human Rights.